really interesting topic, how to find jobs in instructional design. And this was something that Rubina reached out to me after our last community discussion. She wanted to bring up this topic, and I love it. I was excited to see it. So welcome, Rubina. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to start out with just a little sort of introduction to who you are. And maybe you can just give our audience just a quick bio of what you do and why you do it, and just your story.
Sure. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here. Second time now on TLDC, so I'm enjoying the experience. I love this community. I love a community feel, and so that's why I just love being a member here. So for my background, I started off as a teacher and segued into instructional design. And over the years, I've met a lot of other folks that have also done very similar things and have had very similar backgrounds too, and wondering how to get into instructional design from teaching. How do you segue from one to the other? So hopefully I can share some of my experience, and hopefully you can learn from that as well. So I started off in teaching, got my bachelor's from University of Maryland, and education and English education especially, and I taught in the public school system for about 3 to 4 years. After that, I segued into business development and worked in the DC film market for another couple of years and learned how to do budget, negotiating, building relationships and things like that. And so added that to my repertoire. And then from there, I moved out to California in the Bay Area and worked at Stanford for a couple of years. Lived out there, worked in higher education, loved it, loved the family feel of being there with my coworkers and things. A lot of them majored in higher ed. And so when I did my master's, I majored in higher ed as well. I completed my master's at the University of Utah, and I majored in education policy and leadership. Did a lot of curriculum design experience in that and just kept taking courses in it. And I really loved it. And so I knew I wanted to do something very meaningful with it in my career and work in curriculum design. I moved out in 2000 and I think 12 to Utah by way of my husband. And we've been in Utah ever since. And I love it out here. And I learned about instructional design as a field and as a career, and started looking into employment opportunities, and really kind of sold myself in the interviews to say I was skilled and I was aptly committed into the field because of my training and experience previously. So the first thing I did when I landed in Utah to figure out my career, I heard about the Dev Camp conference that was here in June, and I signed up for it, and I loved it, and it was wonderful. And it was just a few days of workshops and training, and I learned Captivate and certified in Captivate. And then I go, okay, this is fascinating. I can pick this up, and now what can I do with it? Can I get a job in it? Can I design something with it? Let's see. Applied around a lot, interviewed for a little bit, and got picked up over at Allen Communication as an instructional writer. Stayed there for about a year and a half, creating corporate training for all sorts of companies like Hewlett-Packard, in banking and DirecTV, and a lot of other placements. Now, Allen Communication is a really wonderful company that trains and develops instructional designers. So I really, really love their approach. The first thing they do upon hire for any new person in the field is they really expose you to their LMS system that was internally built, and they give you extensive training for about 4 to 6 weeks in it. And you learn all these new tools and tricks, and you get to be teamed with other members and stuff like that. And so it was very much of a cohort of people. You're right there with your project manager. You're right there with a design lead. You're right there with artists and other technicians, and really building very robust training together. And so that was just a wonderful experience for me. And I got a lot of samples from that as well, too, to put in my portfolio. And from there, it just, one position to the next was just kind of my trajectory after that. And so I worked in 911 dispatch building training and building out their training program and an advanced certification. And it was an experimental group of about me and another designer, and that was it. So we had to build this curriculum from the bottom floor up, and I just loved it because it was everything. I was able to experience so many parts and pieces into developing a curriculum, and it was just wonderful. And then from there, I started. I was networking a lot, heavily, and getting other projects and stuff like that. So I feel like I'm in a good place now. So
that's awesome, Rubina. So I just want to add to everybody, audience, if you want to add questions to the Q&A, Shannon's already added a great one. And then I actually want to point out this one question, Rubina, that Ken had posted. Has Allen Communications started to pay for relocation? That was the challenge when he interviewed with them.
I'm not sure. So one of the things here in Utah is that we are a little bit of a saturated market, which is kind of a good and bad thing. We do have Western Governors University. They have a very robust instructional design program. They churn out instructional designers. The University of Utah picked up on that. They started a program a few years ago. So they also churn out instructional designers. So we tend to get a lot of people that are already in Utah. So I'm not sure if they would offer you relocation. Perhaps if you were in one of the higher levels, but then it's not in instructional design at that point. It's more of project management or lead. But it is a great place to start off. So you take the opportunity if you'd like it, and start off there. And having Allen Communications on your resume is a wonderful thing. It was very beneficial for me for all my future projects. People that have heard about it love the fact that I went to Allen first, and they know that they build solid designers from there too. So
and they've been around for a long time.
Yeah, they know things. It's just a very sharp company. So
absolutely. So let's get some of those barriers to, how do you get a job in instructional design? It's like, I have kind of been in this space for, I don't know, like 15 years or something like that. And I don't know why, but this is the first time that I've ever sort of seen this topic. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you have a list or you want to just go through and let's talk about it.
Yeah. So I came up with some things over the last couple of weeks from our discussion. And so I see this quite a bit. And so I have my top 5 barriers, and I'm sure everybody in the chat's going to be like, I have a million more to add to that list. So please go ahead and add. And I'll try and go through as many as I can and see if I can feel out some answers as best as I can. But these are the ones that I've seen the most from my own experience and from actually talking to lots of other IDs. I'm very connected with IDs in a lot of different communities. I'm on social media and things like that too, in groups, and I just really toss it out there and hear back from cohort about what's really what the struggles are for them. Some of them are internal. Some of them are, I'm not sure if I have enough experience or if I have the right education. Some of them are really just fears about it. And I'm here to tell you, just try, just go, just slowly start somewhere at one point, make a decision, and just keep going forward and forward and forward and keep growing. The more you grow, the better it is. The more you learn, the better it is. And there is no mistake in whatever you decide to learn. There's always going to be some fruition in that. I firmly believe that. So, I went to a conference and I had to pay for it myself because I wasn't working and I didn't have connections out here in Utah. But that was beneficial for me when I applied to Allen. I got certification in Captivate. I had no idea if I was going to even understand it. Do I get it? Can I manipulate the software? Can I construct a curriculum or a course? And does it make sense in Captivate? Well, you're not going to know until you try it, and you're not going to know until you learn the software and see how you can apply it. So go ahead. And I've seen a lot of questions of what is the right software? Should I do Captivate or should I do Storyline? Those are the big two. And then I know there's Camtasia and Lectora and a lot of others. Start with one. Start with one, learn it really well, start with another one, learn it really well, and see how well you do. And also know your market. Look at the jobs out there. Are the jobs in your market looking for Captivate folks? If they are, do some market research, figure out what's out there for jobs, and then learn it. If it's looking for Storyline developers, learn it. And ILT. A lot of places are still back in ILT, just for their own resources or limitations, or just the way they fashion their learning and training. Learn PowerPoint extremely well. Learn how to develop ILT really well. And so those are things that'll help you further along.
Let me ask you, Rubina, would you rather have, I know you have a master's degree,
Mhm.
but how important are those certifications? Would you take those certifications over your master's degree?
Over the master's degree, what I would say is everybody has their own explicit trajectory. So I really love mine, and I really figured out how to hone in and bank in on mine. So I feel that having my bachelor's degree in education is so worth it on my journey.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like having my master's on it just complements it, and having that master's means to me I mastered understanding adult learning theory, understanding learning theory, learning concepts, teaching concepts. I understand how to develop curriculum. And so those are the broader skills you really do need to have as a basis. I wouldn't trade one for the other, but if you have it or don't have it, just have what you have and really bolster what you can do with what you have and still learn things anyway. So, I can't afford a master's degree. I can't do the master's degree. I don't know if it's worth it. Okay, fine. Learn the software. You've got to go and you've got to draw your toolkit from somewhere. So go ahead and do whatever it is that you can do extremely well.
Very nice.
So that's it. Yeah. I feel that it's a building trajectory for me that I can then get more opportunities with more learning from what I have.
I'm just going to shout out Joe Gonshi, who's in our live audience right now, who's an incredible teacher.
Yes.
And he teaches stuff on Captivate. In fact, I saw him flash by on the Learning Dev Camp website. He's on one of the hero images. So hit up Joe if you're interested in learning more about Captivate and lots of other tools that he teaches.
I actually probably learned from Joe when I was over at Dev Camp. So yes, I remember that. Yeah. Yeah. And he's just excellent. He knows it forwards and backwards. So thank you. So one of the things is, if whatever education you have, wherever you're at this point, great. And always keep learning, always keep trying to learn as much as you possibly can, as deep as you possibly can. If you're in between projects or in between jobs, skill up. that's the time when I say, I might be in between a project or whatnot. I'm skilling up. At this point, I'm learning deeper, more. Let's say I just started learning out storyline. Well, then I want to learn advanced storyline. Let's say I have advanced storyline. Well, now I want to get to, can I learn to do the really cool graphics and the really fun interactions and things spitting on the screen and whatnot. So, which you don't really want, but anyway. uh, but if you can learn those things really deeply well, it's only going to help you to grow more, and be more hireable. I would say if you come from a background that's not specifically in instructional design and you've found it, I know engineers that went into instructional design. I know a lot of salespeople that went into instructional design. Know your field extremely well, or know a certain content, especially if you're struggling to get that first job in instructional design, and you see that there are jobs out there, like in the medical field is huge, healthcare field is so huge for training and development and sales. I think if you can really understand the content or the concepts or whatever is going on in those fields and draw yourself a niche, then you can be a medical instructional designer. Then you can be a sales instructional designer. If you are talking the language of those places in those companies and networking with those folks and really building relationships with those folks, you'll get hired. There's no question about that.
No, that's a really good one. So it's like almost know like what your strengths are, know like what you're kind of a subject matter expert at,
Absolutely.
and kind of that connected to what you want to do in as an instructional designer.
Right.
And see, Rania just posted a question here. Can you tell us your experience with the interviewing process when applying for an instructional design job fresh after graduation?
After graduation. Yeah. So for me, I remember it was rigorous going through the Allen interview. So I think the first step was to take some kind of assessment. Do I even know grammar? Okay, so they give you that little skills test in the beginning and you do it. And then they realize, okay, yes, she can walk, talk, and speak and be fairly coherent. So we'll go to step 2. And then I do step 2. I met with a ton of folks in the room and they asked me to present just a training very quickly in the room with, I guess, I don't know, 5 or 6 other huge stars in training and development that were working for Allen at the time. And so I'm like, okay, sure, I can do this. No pressure, no nothing, right? And I did, and I got through it. And I have no idea how well I did. I would have thought my own personal self, I did horribly bad, but eventually I passed. So, and I didn't know their internal LMS system. I didn't. There's a lot of things I don't know, but there were several things that I did, and because I had that foundational knowledge of what is the purpose of whatever it is I'm creating, what is the purpose of the learning, what is the purpose of the training, or whatever they're asking you to create or develop in those projects. If you can do those higher level things, you can learn any of the other small stuff on the on your way along. And they realized that that I was able to be extremely competent and willing to learn on the way. And I just talked about all my stuff. I came from being a mom full time to going back into the work world. And so that wasn't easy. But I told them all the stuff that I was doing as a mom, volunteer experience. I was president of the Moms Club locally here. I was working on their budgets. I was working on their planning. I was working on their, so those are just skills. Whatever the skills you have from whatever experience you have, you just talk to them, you talk it up. And that was a very healthy conversation that I brought into them. It was something new, it was something different. And they saw that I was someone who could be a leader, and someone who could just kind of, learn, grow, and shine. And so you just take whatever it is you have and put it forward in the best light that you can. You'll be able to get to where you need to go.
Did you have a portfolio when you started out, and do you have one now?
I think at Allen, by the time I was there, not so much. Not so much. It was a little bit earlier too. So, that was several years ago too, and so perhaps the market was a little bit different too. If people knew the software, they were more interested in that. Now they're more interested in the design and the development of things, and so I built my portfolio from Allen forward,
Okay.
uh, and then to every place else that I went to, you snag a piece here, you snag a piece there, and you build it.
Can you talk about that a little bit? What's your portfolio look like, and how important
Yeah.
is it to have a portfolio?
I say it's like your calling card. Everybody is always asking for your portfolio to see what you can do. How do you present information? How clearly do you present? What your design skills are? Do you understand things about accessibility? Do you understand things about typography? Do you understand design and good aesthetic? Which when you go into instructional design, you think initially you don't have to do the graphics and the artwork and whatnot, but in reality, you want to not only present your content, you want to make sure that it is aesthetically pleasing to the learner and to your audience and your stakeholders. Otherwise, they won't care to look at it if it's not really nice and pretty. That's just the truth of it. And so I gleaned a lot when I was at Allen in between projects there. In my downtime, I would just keep looking at the other projects or ask to look at other groups' work. And then I just started learning a lot more. I knew perhaps I just didn't know enough about typography. I understood some things about branding and elements, but I didn't really, myself figure out how is it that I make that look beautiful? How is it that I make things look clean? What does clean design mean? What does flat design mean? What is the difference? What is good design versus bad design? And how do I how do I stay away from the bad design and then keep moving towards the good design? I learned that on the way, a little bit of trial and error, mostly from seeing other samples as much as I possibly could, and then learning from there. And then I start hearing about design associations or design networks, or here's an infographic sample that you can learn from. Here's what flat design is. And one after another, whatever it is I didn't know, I look it up. I research it. I try to play with it and draw with it in my downtime so that I can master it and then go from there.
I love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that we could probably have an entire community discussion just on portfolios alone.
Yes.
Probably will. I think that I'll try to put that together. Now,
Yeah.
Lucy asked a great question that a lot of people are kind of pushing up. How do you put things in your portfolio that are proprietary?
Yes, that's a wonderful question. I actually have that in my notes here too. So, a standard way of doing it, I guess a best practice is to ask. And if they say no, it's probably because they definitely don't want to share what is proprietary. That is the concern. So what you want to do when you ask is already prepare a couple of screenshots with things removed from it that could be proprietary or that is too revealing to their training, and then show it to them and say, I would like to use this in my portfolio. Is that okay? At that point, if you're already showing to them a scaled down slide or an outline or anything that you want to put in your portfolio, then they're more likely to approve it. I personally, I started off having a website and I started off putting sample things on there. I moved into a different direction recently just to just to see if it works for me. And for right now, it does work for me. I put things on a Google Drive. I have folders and I allow access to them. Um, you know, managers and hiring representatives, they understand things are proprietary and whatnot. I still remove things from there. And then I just, it keeps it a little bit more private for me and for the companies that I've worked with, and the designs that I also perhaps want to keep private to myself if they're exceptionally really good. I'm like, I might want to use that another time. I'm not sharing that. So we're going to just keep that in the drive and in folders, and it just says ID samples. And then I create a link and I share it with whichever hiring manager wants to look at it and go from there.
Well, that's great. And Kara brought up a great point. It's kind of going back a little bit to when you were talking about your volunteer experience when, you were, I guess, leading the Moms Club.
Yeah.
How about volunteering in ID?
Absolutely. If you are having difficulty getting a job or getting to the next job or building or growing or wherever you are at, align yourself with some other IDs. Have a few at your disposal that you can call, that you can talk to, not the ones that you feel you may be in competition with. Those are the ones you're going to veer away from. And I understand that this is a community where you do feel like you may be competing with your cohort. And so how do you do things on a level playing field? Figure out the ones that you can definitely rely on. Figure out the ones that want to support you. Go find people that want to support you. There's a whole world out there on social media, on LinkedIn, that, hey, I want to know you because you're another ID in another market, in another place, away from me. So maybe we can just talk to each other about the process and about things that we can help each other with without me interrupting your field and you interrupting my field. And there, people are more amenable to connect and to talk to you and to share things. I have always received really wonderful responses from LinkedIn, whoever I talked to, whoever I asked about that. And then ask to see samples. Ask if there is work that you could do freelance. Ask if there are assignments that they are assigned to or were assigned to. If you can just get that information and then perhaps work on your own, make practice things. Samples are sample work. Work is work. So if you're able to do work, put it in your portfolio.
Love it. Love it. That's great. And I just want to mention here that, TLDC and just this cast entirely is pretty much like a volunteer experience. More than anything, I'm just trying to find subjects and things that are interesting that can help, build a community of people and just be, supportive to instructional designers. So if anyone out there is interested in like talking about anything specific and just want to come on and be able to use this platform to answer their own questions or help in their professional development, just hit me up. I'd be happy to bring you on. And Kara, sorry, I can't. My 5-year-old he just popped in to say bye because he's leaving for school right now. So that's why I was over there. So let's see, we're halfway through our time. I just want to say, if anybody else wants to jump in, we're going to keep talking to Rubina about this. This is a great topic. But if anybody else is interested in offering tips or any suggestions about finding jobs in instructional design, we're happy to bring you on screen if you've got a working webcam and audio that works. But other than that, let's keep going. What else do you have for us, Rubina?
So the types of things that you want to put in your portfolio, I would say, look at your market again, look at the jobs that are being announced, see what it is that employers want to see. If you're in a market that heavily focuses on ILT, create ILT, create several ILT, create samples ILT. If you have an active project that you're working on, go ahead and put it in there. Put in not just your final product of a training. I see that a lot. And I think there's it's good and well to see it, but I know employers then start asking, how did you create this? What was your process? What was your content outline? And then I just started getting more and more questions about that. So then I started taking screenshots or putting in samples of the outline that I create, samples of the storyboard that I create, those screenshots of the actual process of the design that I can put in there, and then take out the proprietary stuff, take out any, take out a couple of lines of content. It can be just as simple as that, and put that stuff in your portfolio. And in my Google Drive, I have things really nicely labeled. I could share that with you. I've got things like infographics that I've created myself. So I've got a folder of infographics, and so that's just what's in that folder. I've got course samples where you see my final product. I have my outlines and wires and scripts so you could see the development of it. And employers really just like seeing all of those things, not just the final product that you can put in there.
That's great. Rania just asked, well, she asked this question a little earlier. Is it important to have experience in UX design?
If you're seeing a lot of those types of employment opportunities in your area and location, and you're finding it harder to find instructional design opportunities, then I would say perhaps go ahead and take that. And then, you're not going to regret it. If you draw yourself a niche in it, go ahead and do it. For me personally, I've worked with UI UX designers. I've managed a few. I have not found it beneficial for me to learn their work because it really is a very deep, skilled trade. So for me, no, I haven't gone in that direction. I've gone in some other content niches, but not that one for me. But yeah, sure.
No, that's interesting. I do have somebody who reached out to me. I'll probably bring her on as a guest soon, who started out as a UX designer and became an instructional designer. And I'm actually really interested.
Oh, that is fascinating. Yeah, I would love to see that too. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, what do you think like the primary skills are then when people are trying to hire an instructional designer? Like what is at the top of the list, like the main things that you've seen, and what people should focus on if they're trying to find a job in instructional design?
I think it really needs to show in your resume. Can you work with people? Can you work well with people? Can you communicate? Do you interview well? One of your main goals is going to be interviewing SMEs. Do you know what questions to ask your SMEs? If the answer is no, go ahead, do a very quick Google search of interview questions on SMEs and start from there, and then learn it, pick it up, hone in. Where I'm at, I guess I'm like somewhere in between mid to maybe senior level ID, somewhere in there. I go back and forth a little bit. But I'm at a point where I don't get those introductory questions. I get here's a problem. How can you help solve it? What do you do when you come up with problems? What do you do when there is trouble? How do you troubleshoot? And those are the kinds of questions I'm starting to field now. And it's really about the relationships that you build, the skills that you know, the communication that comes across. There are things where I get into the middle of making a decision on behalf of the learner. As an instructional designer, the way I put, and this could be a whole topic separately, Luis, we'll talk about it later, because I thought this was fascinating to me. The way I frame how I perform for myself is that the client for me is the learner. The client for me is the learner. They have to love the training to take the training. They have to understand the training to take the training. You have to write for them. You have to write on behalf of them. You have to write in a clear and consistent way, purposeful, meaningful, and they are my client. So when I have that frame, meaning that if I have the employer, employer's my customer, but I have to work with my customer. I have to sell them something that they want to buy, that they want to give to the learner. Do they always know the best product if they are the customer? No, that's my job. So I have to decide what is the best product output. And sometimes when you get in all of that content dump or all of those little parts and pieces, and they say, please make this training and please make wonderful people at the end of this training. Well, that's great, but perhaps not everything is going to go into one training. Perhaps it has to be a series of trainings. Perhaps it's not the right information for training. You're in that middle between the customer, who is your employer, your stakeholders, and the learner that is your client, and work on behalf of both of, like, work in the middle of both of them to kind of get things across. And
Yeah.
I love that frame. For me, it just works fantastically. I'm able to then say, listen, as an expert in this field, I believe we need to go in this direction, or I believe we need to go in this direction, and here's why.
So Kara, I like how she calls it SME management. Toddy calls it, what is it? Care and feeding of SMEs. But, Micaiah posted, or Micaiah, sorry if I pronounced it wrong. She said that it's been difficult for her. How do you get better at that? The SME management or the care and feeding of SMEs?
It is through experience. You're going to have SMEs that, you always want to be polite and respectful and mind your P's and your Q's and whatnot. Sorry, I'm getting things from my mom, but she's fine. I'm fine. Anyway, and you, it's not so much appeasing them. I don't want you to think that you have to do that. And this is why I love getting more IDs in the field and love building the field, because the more we have of our folks in the field, the greater support we get to each other. SMEs are not the directors of the training. You are. You are the director of your training. You get to talk to the SMEs, get content from it. And the first thing you do once you get their content is you're evaluating, is this the right content to put into the training or not? You may or may not have to talk to the SME at that point. After that, you just say thank you, and then you move on to your other folks that you have to talk to create the training, your project managers, your whoever else is there and available to you, to then make those evaluative decisions. That comes in your wheelhouse, not the SME. And you just assure them, I'm going to make you a fabulous training. I'm going to make a training that is so wonderful, that is going to change, the way we've ever done this stuff before. A lot of this stuff is new for them and they've never done it before. And they don't know if they want to share content with you. They're apprehensive. They're grumpy. They're bothered. They're busy. They have other things going on. You just, do what you can, get what you need, and then move on.
I love it. And I'm going to just read Kara's comment out because, for the audio only podcast, but Kara says, a lot of SME management is letting them shine. They are the knowledge experts. We are the process experts.
Yep. And keep reorienting and keep going through again and again and just making sure your roles are well defined and whatnot. And it's that relationship building. So make sure in your toolkit, that the things that you bring into the table as your own ID is to know how to talk to people, build those relationships, negotiate things, win some, lose some.
Yeah. And it kind of speaks a little bit to Katie's comment here. Don't forget business acumen, which we probably don't talk enough about it. We like the fun stuff, but it's totally true, Katie. Thank you for saying that. So let me ask you this one. I'm probably going to take this in a completely different direction now, but I'm sort of curious. I had this on my notes.
Sure.
What is the most overhyped skill you think instructional designers are told to have, but they probably don't even really need? And anyone in the live audience, please,
I know for me, it's like, you see a job announcement, captivate storyline, this one, and it freaks people out. And that's just HR, honestly. That's just HR or very willful thinking. You don't have to know that many tools. I swear, you only are going to have to know one or two. And it's probably because perhaps the folks in the office don't know which is the best tool for which training that they need to develop. And that's something that you can help them decide. So let's just, and use it to your best benefit. So let's just say they're just starting to learn about training and development, and they want to put this process in their company. That's the best time for you to say, well, if I'm a storyline developer, I'm going to suggest storyline because that's the one that I know the best, that I know the most, and I'm going to take a look at the content, and I can build it and I can sell it, and these are the wonderful benefits of making it in storyline, why storyline is so wonderful, and that's how we're going to go about it. And I actually did that at the dispatch agency that I worked for. We were building from the ground up. I had to pick the authoring tool, and I said, sure, storyline, deal, done. They didn't, it didn't matter. As long as you build great training and do it, it's fine. So yeah, the number of software, do you need to know all of those things all at once in order to get a job? No. Learn one, learn it really well. If you get work, great. If you don't, perhaps learn another one. Keep at it. You can do it for free. Make sure that you can do it for free. There's always trials. There's YouTube. There's community blogs and everything like that. So you can always skill up and learn things. Don't worry about how much money you need to invest, because you don't have to if you're really smart about it. So
yeah. Yeah, no, I've actually seen that in other instances where, because I'm probably more of a media sort of technology professional, and you know, going into situations where it's like, wow, look at this list of things I need to know, and once I actually get in there, it's like I didn't need to know
any of it, yeah, or half of it, and it's
right.
It's even the hiring person sometimes, you know, the HR person is writing down the job description based on the job description they saw from some other place. They all kind of look the same. They mimic each other. Don't hold yourself up from applying. Apply for the job anyway. Even if you don't know everything, let's say you check mark 7 out of 10 things that are on their list, apply for the job. Don't not ever apply for the job. Always apply for the job. You never know.
I think that speaks a little, you know, to Lucy and Kara's point, where sometimes like established shops will actually have specific things that you probably need to know, and that you know should at least have some kind of a background with. Oops, we lost your audio there, Rubina. Still out. Hey, Ruby. Yeah. Can anyone else hear Rubina? I think I've lost your audio. Can't hear. Let's see. Let me just refresh her. Wow, she's. Let me refresh. I'm going to refresh, and that'll kind of shock her there.
Hey,
oh, there you go. We couldn't hear that last. It sounded like you were really on a run there.
Oh no, sorry. I love my mute button. Sorry, a little bit too much. I keep hitting it. I was going to say, you know, like, apply for everything. If you need to learn a new skill, you can still apply for the job. If it's an easy skill to pick up, go ahead and pick it up and just tell them, hey, I just learned about this software that you want for your thing, and I'm learning it right now. And here are the other things that I already know really extremely well. Please take me into consideration for this project, and let them decide if they want to hire you or not. It depends how many people they have applying for the same job, and what skills they're bringing to the table too. So you never know. So yeah, I had a Vyond project that I asked to use Vyond for, because when I heard all the things that were needed in the design of the animation, I said, well, Storyline's not your right tool. It definitely isn't. There's some limitations when you want the music at the bottom of it. So I said, listen, I think you want a short animation. Go Animate just became Vyond. I looked at it. I could pick it up. I could learn it in a weekend. I'll go ahead and build it for you. Then they asked, well, how long will it take? I kind of timed it out based on my prior experience. I said about a couple weeks, and they said, okay, sure.
Nice. All right. Very cool. So I have just a couple more questions and we're getting close to our time here, but are there other titles other than instructional designer that instructional designers should look at?
How many? I think we should ask that in there to to say how many different titles for jobs that you've actually found. I think I made a list somewhere one time. There is learning experience designer. There is instructional designer. There's instructional developer. There's e-learning developer. There is technical trainer. There is there are, gosh, so many different jobs. And so it, you know,
coming through content technologist,
yes,
curriculum developer,
yeah,
learning engineer,
learning architect.
Yeah.
So yeah, curriculum designer. So if you're having trouble looking for an instructional design job, don't stop there. Please search for these other terms. Know those other terms. Search for those other terms. I know I can share like websites very quickly of where you guys could go. TLDC has a job list. ATD has a job list. Your local chapter of ATD has its own job list. So check out both national ATD and local ATD. When you hear and learn about the companies that are hiring, have a little bookmark for those companies. They're not going to hire instructional designers just once only ever in their lifetime. They may cyclically hire. So keep them on your tab and look for them and keep trying for them. They're going to eventually come over your resume and may pick you up. Recruiters. You got to love recruit. I hate recruiters, but you got to love recruiters because they have access to a lot of jobs that just don't get announced even. And so go on LinkedIn, hi, introduce yourself. I'm an instructional designer. These are the skills I know. These are the tools I know. Let's keep in touch. Let me know if you have a job. And they'll keep you in mind, hopefully.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So let me ask you, we've got 2 questions in Q&A and I want to get to those real quick. So before we wrap up, so I'm going to ask the short one first because I feel like this might be a trick question from Neil, which he's pretty good at asking. How do you deal with recruiters who have no idea what being an instructional designer is?
The same way you deal with everybody who doesn't know what instructional designer is. And then, or even if they think that they do, because they honestly don't. Unless you are an instructional designer, half the time being an instructional designer, I don't even know the stuff that I'm supposed to do on a project. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to do that too. Okay, all right, I'll go ahead and do that for you. Sure, why not? Because you know what happens when you say no or you can't. They'll go for somebody who can. So so you you just explain it to them if you need to. And then, you're going to get these job announcements that ask for everything under the sun, including the kitchen sink. Decide what is comfortable to you, what you're willing to accept, what you're not, and go from there. And there's a couple ways to handle with the recruiters. With the recruiters, you might just say yes so that you can speed yourself ahead and talk to the folks that are really in charge in that company, and then open up to them saying, listen, I really just want to speak to you. This is what I know. This is what I can know. And this is what I can do, and go about it that way. Or you tell the recruiter, please don't contact me for these kinds of jobs. This isn't really what I'm looking for. However, this is what I'm looking for. And if you do have jobs in this, I would love to be your first call.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to finish up with that one. I'm trying to deal with J-Rock and his learning stylist comments fogging up my glasses. So let's answer Shannon's question here. Hang on, let me just click this. I am a former teacher of 6 years, and now I'm an instructional designer at a local university. Do not feel like I'm growing in that position. I love instructional design and ed tech. I recently interviewed for an instructional technology coach, helping teachers integrate technology in their classes and creating professional development of the same topic.
Fun. Mm-hmm.
Do you think going back to K through 12 in that role will hinder my growth? as an instructional designer for future employment?
Unless you're taking a pay cut. I think no. I think absolutely not. And always, sometimes a pay cut is actually not a bad thing. So I shouldn't say that. It depends what you're gaining with it. If you feel that you're gonna learn something new, take it on. If you feel you want to use that as a negotiation for a raise where you're currently at, or a negotiation for a different kind of position that you really did want at the university, now is the time. You're in a very sweet spot to maybe have that discussion, knowing that you have something in your pocket already. I should do a whole thing about negotiating for jobs because that's like a whole different, that's a whole different thing. But think about what you're gaining from it. And if you're learning and growing, I would do it. I always try and take new opportunities where if I'm doing the exact same thing, I get bored. If I'm doing storyline for forever, I get bored. If I say, oh, it's a storyline project here, but I also have to make an ILT for it. Okay, I'll do that because I haven't done that in a while. I'll go ahead and rebuild it, or it's for new content. I'll go ahead and do it. Don't limit yourself to doing the same thing over and over again, and then getting very bored. No, definitely grow, learn. Good luck.
No, that is great. So I'm going to wrap up with just one question that I'm sort of a little bit afraid to ask, but is there a point when you should just kind of give up? Like if you are not able to find anything, like, is there just like, do you know of anybody that's sort of reached that point, or should they, veer off to another direction, or what are the options there?
I'm the type of personality that always tries to be positive, always tries to get a positive spin on things, always tries to use whatever it is I have to get to wherever next I need to go. I don't think it's a waste of learning. I think you can always use the skills that you have for other types of employment. It is hard to get in. It's hard to get in. And I understand the struggle. The struggle is real. And it's hard to get in. It's hard to stay in. Technology changes every 18 months, I hear, and that's always different for each time. So each type of technology is on a different 18-month process. So things change. You may like it today. You may not like it tomorrow. You may be good at it today. You may be struggling with it tomorrow. Those are individual things that you have to kind of calculate. Don't go hungry. Don't go starving. Think about it at that point. If you're a starving artist, you really shouldn't be. Instructional design is a very lucrative career. It's a very self-respecting career too. So keep a lookout for it. Keep an eye for it. Keep applying. Keep your avenues open. Take the job that you need to take, whatever you would like to do, or if you think that, keep it always out there. You can always use whatever you have in any other position you may need to take for financial reasons or whatnot. Or if you're in a very limited market or whatnot, come back. You never know. You never know.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that it seems like instructional designers, for the most part, after dealing with so many of them for so many years, you guys are a passionate group. Like you want to do this, like, this is your thing.
Yeah.
And, and I don't often see that in sort of, in kind of the workplace as much as like with instructional designers.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, really admirable.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to end it on that.
Thank you so much. I really had a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Great. And, we'll talk more. Hopefully we're definitely going to have more community discussions. If you guys have any ideas at all on more topics that you'd like to discuss, I'm going to put the link to our Slack group here. Just jump in, add the TLDCast channel to the Slack work group, so you make sure that you can get in there. And everybody have a great day. Oh, tomorrow, I just want to make sure that this is right. Kara, I do have like your session. If you wanted to do that ATD ICE wrap up for tomorrow, can I post that? Is that okay? Are you still down for that? Because, this was a big week. It was really Oh, you're going to do it on the 31st. Okay, never mind. So it's not tomorrow. Yeah. So, but anyway, Kara's got an ATD ICE wrap up coming up on the 31st. I know that this week it was, I mean, all of my social media feeds were pretty much useless with all the ATD chatter that was going on. So I kept pretty quiet, but I'm looking forward to that. And everybody have a great day. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Thank you so much for popping in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, bye.